Light the 4 bottom bulbs. There's 1. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. There's a green light start. Watch the scoreboards, and guess what? Tony Stewart is an NHRA national event winner. He goes 5:32 and wins it. Last year, he lost by 2 10,000ths of a second. This year, he won by 3 10,000ths of a second. Margin of victory, .0003. And Tony Stewart is a national event winner in the National Hot Rod Association.
You've done historical things. Now you've won in everything on the Vegas complex. Once you realized what you've done, I think you realized it in Victory Lane from the videos I saw. That's a pretty big feather in your cap. Possibly nobody could ever do that.
We honestly thought about it last fall when we ran second at the NHRA race. The very first race I ran, I lost by 2 10,000ths of a second, which literally is 1 inch. It is that big. And there are 15,840 inches in a quarter mile.
That's
so
incredible.
You can imagine driving a quarter mile, 15,840 inches, and you lose by 1.
Are you smarter at math now because of drag racing?
No, it just the good thing is we all got phones and they got
way
easier for us. But yeah, I sat there last year, and after we won the semifinals, I'm like, holy crap! If we won, I got thinking about like I won at the bull ring in a non-wing sprint car and a midget. Then I won in an ASCS national race, 360 race at the dirt track. I won my first USAC Silver Crown race on the dirt track. 1 cup win at the big track, and then we were 1 inch away from completing it. But who would have known that, 4 races later and in the spring, we're going to come back to Vegas and we're going to win by 3 10,000ths of a second, which is 1.5 inches, and end up completing it. So that was probably, aside from, I think there were 3 things that I was so grateful of at the top end when we got out of the car. I was just so excited that we won, because you and I are racers. It doesn't care till the day we die. We're going to be racing something. If it means we got to race to the toilet to see who gets to the toilet first, or to get to the buffet, or to get to down the hall to see our girlfriend at the nursing home, whatever it's going to be, we're going to always be racing something. So the win was exciting to begin with. And then I thought, man, this is so great for this team that I'm with, the McPhillips family. It's Rich Sr., Rich Jr. We call Rich Sr. Pops, so I'll refer to him as Pops. But him and Eric and Bill and Renee, those are the 5 people that really work on my car. And the car that I drove last weekend was not the car that I ran at Vegas last fall that we had success with. They were building a brand new car already for Richie, the son. And after the Vegas race, then they decided they wanted to put a deal together for me to drive the new car this year. So we started the year very, very slow and rough, and preseason testing, we ran a couple days, could not get any speed out of the car. Ran the Baby Gator Nationals, which is the weekend before the Gator National event, slow. Went to the Gator Nationals, slow. Went to Pomona, slow. Like literally couldn't get this car to get out of its own way. And it was literally the biggest part of it was the first 60 feet of the run. Just couldn't get the car to take off and launch. And, but they were pulling their hair out. Pops, I don't know him that well, but I mean, I could see every run that we would come back, just the stress and torment in his eyes. He just was so frustrated. But, after the Pomona race before Vegas, we took the car to Bakersfield, California, and did a test there. And it didn't show any promise either. I went there. Richie drove the car. I said, hey, this was going to be your car. You need to do the test session and drive it. And didn't see anything out of the day that we tested. But in between the test and going to Vegas, they found 2 things that were very big and very important that they had missed on, and had found a couple other areas that we made improvements on. So I literally on Friday at Vegas, when I stepped on the gas to do the burnout, I'm like, whoa, this thing's woke up now. I can tell it's a different race car. And he told me the whole laundry list. I mean, intake, camshafts, did some stuff in the rear end, freeing the rear end up. We had an alignment issue with the motor and the drive lines, just little things that added up. But it literally was a way different race car. And Friday, the 2 qualifying rounds we had, we didn't even make it down the track. It'd make it a second and a half into the run and literally shake the tires so bad you had to lift. So we knew we were way on the other side of the needle at that point. And that's a good feeling. I mean, it's like a racehorse. It's way easier to slow that horse down than it is to sit there and get the whip out and try to get more speed out of it. So we had power. We just had to kind of pull it back and figure out where it needed to be. So for the most part, when we started on Friday, it was like starting all over with a new car.
I love it because this is racer talk, and racers love to hear how you go from not good to testing, overcoming, prevailing. So we're in victory lane, and the great Dick Trickle taught me about snapshots. Whether you're in the race car and you're coming off the corner, you look at the mirror, that's a snapshot. Or life is full of snapshots. What I really liked about your victory lane, and I tuned into that, was your wife, Leah, came and gave you a kiss, and you said to her, I don't have to borrow your Wally anymore.
Yeah.
I have my own. And she looked you square in the face like a competitor, and she says, you earned it. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, I do.
It's badass.
I won't forget that moment. Are you kidding me? I mean, I could not wait for her to get down there. The first person to me, and the lady that you saw me hug immediately while I still had my helmet on, was Kelly Antonelli. And Kelly runs TSR for us. She used to run John Force Racing, and she was looking for a change. And we said, hey, what a coincidence. We're looking for somebody. But she's the spine and the backbone of the whole program. So Kelly was the first one I hugged, but I kept looking around for Leah. I'm like, she'll be here any second. But it's a long time. I mean, to get on, to celebrate on the part that you miss as a driver in NHRA is when you win the race, normally you get to celebrate with the team right away. The hard part in NHRA is you're a half mile down the track.
Yeah. So
they celebrate on the line, and then they all get in the tow vehicle and scooters and golf carts and haul ass down the return road to get up there to you. But I remember that. I will never forget that moment. I was so excited to see her up there, and she's really the reason that I'm there. I mean, I for multiple reasons. I mean, we'll dive deeper, obviously, but she's my coach. I mean, she's my driver coach. There's so many things like etiquette of just, I don't even know. And I still don't know. I've ran 5 races now, and I'm still confused on the flags at the top end of the track on who's supposed to turn off first and this and that. And it can be a dangerous situation if you're not paying attention. So they always say, when in doubt, just stop. So, but I'm figuring all those things out. But Leah has been the most amazing teacher you could possibly imagine. I mean, from the day we met, I started asking a lot of questions about the sport because, like you mentioned earlier, I'm a student of motorsports. I want to understand it. I want to know it. I want to wrap my head around it and my hands around it and understand it. So we've talked about a lot of things. And then I've been to the track the last couple of years and been able to watch and learn from that.
This is so cool. To do all the things we've done in motorsports and to win a national event is pretty awesome. So we were so close last fall. And the start of this year has been so miserable for this team. But Rich and Richie and Eric and Bill and the guys on Mike's car, everybody, Chris and Tex that work on Jasmine's car, everybody pitches in and we take care of each other. But these guys made big gains since Pomona and showed up this weekend. That's
what I'm trying to make sure I learn in the sport of NHRA is I want to be respectful coming in. It does not matter anything that I've done in my past before I got there. I'm a rookie just like everybody else, but I have the way I am as a person and the way as I am as a driver is I want to respect the sport. I want to respect the people in the sport, and I want to learn the etiquette, and I want to do it the right way. And Leah will tell you, I focus on making sure that I'm doing it the right way. I can do things. And then at the end of the day, we'll go to the hotel. I'm like, hey, I did this. Was this right? Was this the right way to do it or not? And literally some of the guys that I line up with for qualifying runs, you're not racing each other, but you're paired up against each other for qualifying. And, in our class, we have injected cars, and then we have some cars that have blowers on them. Mm-hmm. And the way they stage is different than what the alcohol cars that just are injected, how they stage and everything. So I would literally talk to every driver that I was going to and say, hey, help me understand how you need to stage so I don't mess you up, because I don't want to mess your run up. If I mess my run up, that's on me, but I don't want to mess your run up because I don't know what I'm doing. And I think those guys really respect the fact that I don't sit there and go, I don't care about any of these guys. All I care about is myself. I care about the guys I'm racing with. And because of that, I've built a good rapport in a short amount of time with the teams and the drivers that are in my class in the pit area.
Yeah, I want to compliment you. Then we're going to move on from drag racing. Number one, you're the ultimate racer. I'm saying that. The other thing that I know about you is that grown men in racing, they try to be tough guys, and they'll leap over things they should have focused on. But when I'm around you, one thing I've noticed about you is you take the most simplest thing and you're very serious about it. And I noticed that about you years ago. I'm like, Tony's focused in on what I thought was just the simplest thing. And I want to thank you, Tony, because you made me be more mature in that area. So like,
did you just say you're mature?
No, don't. I got everybody thinking I'm a nut right now.
You're gaining on it. Yeah, I'll give you credit. You're gaining on it, but I mean, shit, you got a long way to go, bud.
I want everybody to know that about you, that at the start of a manual of instructions, whether it's life or racing, you're dead serious from the start about just the most simplest thing. So I just wanted to compliment you on that and tell you that you taught me that. You don't got to be a tough guy. Let's get this right. Let's start out right. And that's why when I saw you going to drag racing school, I thought that was so badass. You were learning from the very bottom.
And honestly, when I did that, I had no intention of racing. I literally went at the end of 2020 because, Lee and I met in March. And then toward the end of the season, I had built enough of a rapport with her team to where I was allowed and was asked to sit in the debriefs with the
learning the lingo
and I was sitting there, and I would sit with my shoulders like this, and I would try not to breathe too loud. And I got to listen to all the debrief, and I would listen to Leah talk about the run and what she had to do driving wise. Anybody that thinks a drag race, you just go straight, you end up you could go a straight line to get there, but none of those cars go exactly straight the entire time. So you have to drive. But I sat and listened to all those things, and I sat there and you and I've both done it. We've all, you and I visit different race tracks and watch different cars race. And when you hear people talk about it, you go, well, we think we understand and know what it would feel like to do that. But when she would talk about something, I'm like, well, in my head, I understand it, but I don't really know what that feels like.
And you wanted to feel it.
So I wanted to go to the drag racing school and just get a better perspective on it. Just so when I sat in those meetings, awesome. Then I don't have to ask all those questions and at the end of the school, you feel about 1/10 of the things you need to learn, but it gives you a good base and understanding of how it all works. And, I started in a super comp car there at Holly's school, and halfway through the day, he had brought his alcohol car for me to drive as well. And that car is a 220 mile an hour car in a quarter mile. So
oh my Lord,
get your undivided attention, not because of the speed, but because of the acceleration to get there. I mean, our cup cars cannot get to 200 mile an hour in a quarter mile. It just physically is impossible. So that's how it really started. But I didn't have any intentions at that time of doing anything more than just going to that school.
Oh God, I got to wrap this part up. But when we were at Bike Week, I told you, Tony, I did a whole shot in the JEGS Pro Stock. And I said something to you that I thought was kind of funny, but you took it serious. I said, when I did that whole shot, my brain was here.
Yeah.
And the G-force was so unbelievable because I was already in my 50s and the car was up here. And you said that is a big deal.
Yeah, it really is. It's that's the hardest thing to explain to people because they're like, man, you can drive anything. Well, I feel like, yeah, I can drive anything. But the thing that happens is, and the easiest way to describe it is if you wanted to bench press 400 pounds, you don't just start with 400 pounds. You start with a lighter weight, and as you get used to it and you build up to it, then you keep adding the weight and you just keep building and working up. Our brains have to learn to process information. So you think of fighter pilots and you think of drag racers, and you think about all these people that drive things and fly things that move very quickly and change direction very quickly. Their brain has to learn, and it doesn't just automatically do it. Your brain has to train itself. If it doesn't have an application to grow and be better, it won't. No different than lifting weights and building muscles. So I had to drive slower cars that didn't have as much acceleration as the top fuel car just to get my brain to start wrapping itself around it, because I told you the first time I drove Leah's top fuel car, they said, go to the 330-foot cone, because all the cars you and I've ever driven, if we want to ease up to it, we just run part throttle. And then when we want to go faster, a little more throttle. It doesn't work that way in drag racing, because there's timers, there's all these sensors that have to go off, but you have to stab the gas when the light changes, and then it has to go through and do its work. So to work up to it, you just go shorter distances. You start at the 330 cone, then you go to the 660 cone, then you go to the 1,000-foot, and then you go to the end of the quarter mile in the alcohol car. So, but I hit the gas, got to the 330 cone and saw the 330 cone, shut it off, and my brain was probably at 150 feet. And like I tell everybody, I've driven Leah's car 16 runs. I went 322 miles an hour to 3.76 laps time. And that's hauling ass.
Yeah.
Well, they're running into 330s when they're hauling ass, but 322 was fast for me. But trying to get your brain to understand, and you and I, we could go to Bristol in happy hour and run 100 laps in happy hour before it was over in a 1-hour session. In a 8-hour day at an NHRA track, if you have a good day, you can get four runs in. With the alcohol, you get 5 maybe. So to try to get your brain to understand and learn all these things, it takes time to do it. And that's really how I ended up in the alcohol car with the McPhillips family. Is I drove her car at Vegas a year ago and spun the tires the last 2 runs out after 200 feet and didn't even know I was spinning the tires because it was still pulling at 1.6 Gs. I mean, it's still pulling hard, but I couldn't feel it. And I got very frustrated. And also at the same time, the reality came in of, when the thing goes down through there and there's no problems, it's okay. It's the 40 things that could happen during that run of a cylinder going out or spinning the tires and not catching it quick enough. There's just so many things that you got to be prepared for and ready for it. That's what scared me. Of if I'm behind the car and something happens, there's a good chance I can't catch up to it to recover it. So that's why I took a step back and came down to run alcohol.
I want to do exactly what we're doing right this second. I want to hold more of these trophies. So I enjoy it. I love our teams with, the Dodge Power Brokers, funny car and top fuel car, but I love having the opportunity to race with these guys. This is a cool class with some really cool drivers and teams and crew guys that you want to get to know. So everybody goes, when are you going to top fuel? I'm pretty happy where I'm at right now. This is a fun group to race with.